Hi, today we're here to talk about what is agritourism and starting an agritourism business. I just want to let everybody know that this beginning of a 12-part series, this is going to be the basics that we're going to be talking about today. And our future presentations that I have listed at the end of this presentation will get into more details. So just this is bare bones, and then we're expanding in the future series. So my name is Lindsay Pageau. I work for Cornell Cooperative Extension's Harvest New York team as an Ag Business Development Marketing Specialist. I also own Adirondack View Lavender in Keysville, New York, and it's a small agritourism business. We do you-pick lavender, sunflowers, grapes. Also have a little farm store. We do different events in the properties, anywhere from weddings to baby showers. We just figure out ways to incorporate our different agritourism activities into what's actually we're producing on the farm. And I'm really fortunate to be presenting with Jennifer Fimble. She's from CCE Dutchess County. She's a senior resource educator, and she's been working in Dutchess County for a number of years, and she specializes in livestock, equine, agricultural policy, and field crops.
Good afternoon, everybody.
And I'm going to let Jen take over for a little bit right now.
Okay, so we really need to start with what is a definition of agritourism. Some people think it's just doing weddings. There is a law in New York State that surrounds all that. So according to the National Agricultural Law Center, the definition of agritourism should include the following four factors. It combines the essential elements of the tourism and agricultural industries. It attracts members of the public to visit agricultural operations, is designed to increase farm income, and provides recreation, entertainment, and/or educational experiences to visitors. Agritourism activities must include some aspect of farm life, and products from the farm must be available for sale. Those two pieces are really critically important to your agritourism operation. Next slide. Lindsay, can you hit the next slide? There you go. Thank you. So in New York State Ag and Markets defines agricultural tourism as activities conducted by a farmer on farm for the enjoyment and/or education of the public, which primarily promotes the sale, marketing, production, harvesting, or use of the products of the farm, and enhance the public's understanding and awareness of farming and farm life. And there is a New York State Safety in Agritourism Act, and it covers a lot of information on what you would need to do if you're going to start or have an agritourism business. So some examples. Land used for agricultural amusements, which are produced from crops grown or produced on the farm, provided that such crops are harvested and marketed in the same manner as other crops produced on such a farm. So if you have pumpkin picking, you could do as agritourism. Yes, it's you pick part of it, but it's also if you want to do an activity that's like pumpkin chunking, where they throw, you build a big sort of primeval looking machine, and it throws the pumpkins as far as it can. Because you have pumpkins for sale there, because you have the pumpkins already growing there as a you-pick operation, that becomes actually an agritourism piece. Hay rides, corn mazes, animal petting, as long as it's farm animals. You-pick operations, Christmas tree cutting. So not just necessarily the Christmas tree cutting, but any activities that you might have around that whole scenario that is for the experience of the people, the general public coming in. Your maple trails, cider trails, because again, you're part of a larger industry doing a legitimate on-farm operation, and then you have those items for sale. Education pieces, so school tours, garden nursery tours, agricultural technical tours, history, agricultural exhibits, winery, cidery, brewery tours. Something that's not agritourism, and it's very common for people to think that it is. So a wedding is not considered agritourism unless So if you have beef cattle on the farm and you do normally have beef as a product that you grow and sell, then the caterer should use and should note on the menu that is part, that's where the beef came from for the part of the wedding itself, and that the beef is also still available to the wedding party to purchase. The same with a brewery or a cidery. Concerts, again, a concert in and of itself is not considered agritourism and non-agricultural fairs. So you have to be really very careful about how you work in some of these special events, or you will still need a special event permit from your town.
So getting started with agritourism. So if you're going to start an agritourism operation, you want to look at what type of operation are you currently running on your farm? And are you actually doing agritourism? Are you doing U-pick and you just don't define it as agritourism? Have you been to other agritourism operations? And I felt like this was key for myself when I was starting my farm for agritourism, was visiting different operations and seeing what I liked and what I didn't like that was happening. And the big thing is, do you really want to meet and greet people? Because that is the sole focus that ends up happening in an agritourism operation, is you're going to be interacting with the public, versus if you're just on your farm growing the crops, all you have to deal with is, your crops, your employees. But now you're bringing another dynamic onto the farm, our people. One big thing is I want to stress is, when you're starting an agritourism operation, start small and grow over time. It's really hard to determine your first year of operation what's going to actually happen. Example is, on my farm, I originally started with U-pick grapes. I had, like 1 or 2 people a day show up. And the lavender farm, it was a constant flow. So it was hard to determine a lot of different aspects of what was going to happen that first year. What is your target audience? Is it families? Is it kids? And is adults? So, I always think adults more oriented would be a brewery or winery, but some breweries are somewhat kids family oriented because they have, like a sand pile with trucks and stuff. But how are you going to target that specific audience of who you want to visit your farm? And then what makes your operation different? So if you're a strawberry farm and then down the road, there's another strawberry farm, like what can you do on that farm to make it a little bit different? Do you have like a kids area? Are you having a strawberry festival? And then your first year, it's hard to figure out how many employees you're going to need sometimes for agritourism. I know my first year for U-pick lavender, I was running back and forth. I was meeting the people, I was interacting, answering questions in the field, showing them how to cut the lavender, and then checking people out. So after my first year, I realized I can't do that. I needed to bring in other family members that are already involved with the operation to help out. And then the big thing is visitor expectations. So most of the people that are going to come to visit your agritourism operation are not farm people when it comes down to it. So they're going to have a different expectations of what a farm should look like. They're going to most likely be looking for a clean farm, not, huge amounts of plastic piles of wrappers and stuff from different hay bales. They want it clean, well maintained. You're going to want to have like a parking area, consistent hours. So always make sure you update your operational hours, because that can really upset your visitors if they show up to the farm and you're not open and you hadn't updated your hours. Have clear signage that includes your location of the farm. You should have signage on the side of the road saying this is whatever your agritourism operation is. Clear signage of where the farm begins and ends for different aspects, from where the agritourism is to restricted areas to like operational hours. You do want to be able to have those posted on your farm. You want to make the environment that they're visiting as safe as possible, also accessible to the public. So this is anywhere from, I look at accessibility as including women that are pregnant, new mothers, children, seniors, people with other disabilities. If you have areas of the farm that you don't want the public to be interacting with, you should have barriers up. people are going to be always looking for restrooms. So having porta potties, or if you have a facility that you have other bathrooms available. Have different forms of payment. You know, most people nowadays carry around credit cards, but not everybody does. So credit cards, you know, if you're going to take checks, cash. I know other people out there now are using like Venmo on different agritourism operation. Have a pet policy in place. I'll get into a little bit more detail. And then if your operation is pretty sizable, you might need to have additional maps showing where things are in the farm. So this is my farm layout, and I'm just going to go over a little bit things that I like to highlight of things that I'm doing on the farm that I like, and some things that I wish I had a little bit more control over. So Thompson Road is the road that we're on. There's a little picture down here of a sign. That's a huge sign that you can see right from the road. We also have a sign right here saying entrance area. And then we have a driveway that's now actually has I think it's item 4 stone. And then we have a parking lot. And, you know, I was warned kind of like by my town that you can't have people be parking on the road. So that was something I made sure is there's enough room for parking. And if need be, there is overflow area on the farm. I have a little farm store, an area that's designated for sunflowers, and one that's a flower patch, event space. So that's where we put a 20 by 40 tent. Then we have rows of grapes and lavender field. We have a berry patch, which is, it's not for you pick berries. It's more for us to pick berries and put them into the farm store. We have a area that's going to be developed just for kids, a little kids zone area. We have a porta potty on the property. And then one thing I want to highlight out the most is if you're going to have your own personal property involved with it too, some things to put in consideration. So right here, where it says gate, is a metal gate that has signage on it saying private driveway, no trespassing, violators will be prosecuted. And that is closed at all times to the public. And then this red line that goes across in the map is along each of the grapevine rows. I have tape pulled across, and it says, and I have signage that says no trespassing on every single row, all the way down here. And I will tell you from my personal experiences, people still go where it says no trespassing and show up all the way down to my house and garage. So that's just something to be aware of, is the public will be the public, and they might, try to wander where you don't want them to be wandering. So it's important to have, a polite way to ask people to turn around. I just tell people this is my private property down here, and that the farm store and the lavender field is up near the road. And then one of the things too about, your farm is making sure that you're able to be having this agritourism zone. So I know my area is zoned for agriculture. So I'm very, very careful, just like Jen was saying, about every single aspect of the farm that we're doing relates to some type of sales that's happening. So food safety and pet policy. So depending on your different agritourism operation, when it comes down to food safety is, you have to, if you have a petting zoo, you want to have places where people can wash their hands before they go in, pick strawberries out of the field. Need to have just signage stating that this, this right here, your farm needs to be, cautious towards pets. So you never want to ask somebody that comes on your farm, like, is this a service dog? When it comes down to it, it's better to have like a pet policy in place. Service dogs are always welcome anywhere when it comes down to it, but a pet policy in place stating that, due to, food safety and liability, we can't allow pets in the field. However, service dogs are always welcome, or service animals. And then if you're going to be, people are going to be picking like strawberries or blueberries, is making sure that they have access to like clean containers to put the products in. So marketing your enterprise. So the first thing I would say is if you're farming already, how to market your business. What works for you and what doesn't work for your operation. Make sure that your farm has developed a brand behind it. And that includes like you're developing a brand that people are going to be able to notice. So like signage from the road, if you're going to have signage, like little signage around town saying that your farm's open for operation at this in different hours, or different marketing materials. If you're going to be making up little post-it cards or rack cards. Who's your target audience? I kind of mentioned that before. Who do you want to be bringing in? Is it going to be your local population? Is it certain an age of individuals? And then how far of a distance are you going to be marketing this? Is it anywhere from, a mile or two down the road up to, 2 hours? I know on my farm, my main focus was the local population because we opened for U-Pick Lavender in 2020. So we wanted, just locals when it came down to it. But then I wanted a larger population. So now, we're bringing anywhere from like at least 2 hours away to come visit the farm. And then for advertising, consider like what you have for a marketing budget. In the beginning, you might not have a lot of funds available to put into your operation. So, having something put aside in the beginning and then look at what other, free promotional opportunities there are out there. So for marketing, these are the things that have really helped for my operation when it comes down to it is social media. So I do Facebook and Instagram for the operation. I post pretty much every single day when the operation is open. So my farm is open from May 1st to October 31st. I do a post every single day. And that includes anywhere from, since it is a flower farm, I can just take pictures of the different flowers, the different products are in my farm store. And then one thing is, I know I struggled for a little while is figuring out like what to post or how to make videos. So it was really important for me to follow other similar operations or even a little bit different ones to see how often people posted, what they were doing with their social media posts. Like this right here is part of this picture in the corner is just part of an idea when I saw that people were putting lettering over pictures. That brought to my attention a lot of different videos that people are doing, and then adding music tends to bring in a lot of followers. Making sure that you have a website, and if you have a website, make sure that it's up to date, where you continuously update it with your operational hours, the products that you have on the farm. Newspaper, you can do paid advertising, but also if you can ask your local newspaper, and sometimes there's several ones in the area, to come out and do an article on the farm. That's a great way of free promotion. That's my first year was really helpful for the operation. Magazines. So in many towns, we have different free magazines that go out to the public, people can pick up, but also paid subscriptions. So what I noticed with this for my area was it was a little bit harder to get into a local magazine because they weren't ready to take on people that had just been started an operation. They wanted more established operations. So this is an area of focus to maybe not your first year, but down the road. One thing that I learned too is, you need to think about if they're going to take into an article, almost running the article the next year, because they're going to need to come out and take pictures of your farm and, gather the information on the story. So that's just requires a little planning. TV is a great outlet. Building your name in your community. And that's really, word of mouth is going to be a big highlight for your farm. If there's a community event calendar, paper, online, and TV. I know in my area, we have all of those, and it's really important to get like my U-Pick dates into those different outlets. And then other local outlets to be thinking of is, you know, if you have in your area an organization that does market different farms. Up here in the Adirondacks, we have Adirondack Harvest, and they do a great job with highlighting farms in the area on a rotational basis, but also sharing Facebook and Instagram posts. Local tourism offices also are a great place to work with to help market the farm.
Hey, Marty,
And
hang on.
And it's really important to have clear dates of when your crops are going to be available to the public. And that also sometimes requires just being in operation for a year or two and knowing when things are going to potentially go into bloom. So I've been able to now figure out when my U-pick lavender dates are, sunflower dates, you know, weather permitting, things can change, but pretty much be able to start advertising those a lot earlier than my first year. And then if you're going to be working with different media outlets, sometimes it's a good idea to pre-write articles or bullet points on your farm, just because you don't want to have any miscommunication what's happening and not happening on your operation. And then customer relations is have permission before taking pictures of people and sharing them. So this is a picture of people picking lavender on my farm, and I asked permission ahead of time, can I take pictures? And they were fine with it. And then what are you going to do if you have a customer that is not happy with your operation? So it's always important to have somebody on your farm that is, you know, relates well to the public, and, you know, is the person that's really able to welcome people, but also having almost like a scripted response if somebody isn't happy of how to handle it. I know I have on one occasion is there was a miscommunication of when U-pick was for lavender. It's only in the summertime. We don't offer in the fall. So people came to the farm in the fall and they said, if you want to come back in June and July, I will more happy let you pick lavender, and I'll let you have a free bouquet of lavender. And they seemed very happy afterwards. So, and then customers will be customers, and you're going to have good and bad days on the farm. So interacting with the public can be very tiring. You know, I mentioned about having people to show up to different parts of my property that are restricted, and it's going to happen. And you also have to look at that these customers, if they're happy, they're going to continue to come back to your operation, spread word, buy products. So it's really important to, you know, make their experience as welcoming as possible. And you're going to have customers that ask crazy questions some days that you're just going to go, wow. And I think about back to the days when I worked in a restaurant, and I had a customer ask, so those signs that you see on the highway that have a deer on them, is that the only place that a deer can cross? And I was 18 years old at the time, and I was wondering why would somebody ask that question? And I nicely said, nope, deer can cross anywhere. It's just those are sometimes high traffic zone for deer, even though deer can be anywhere when it comes down to it. And then I just kind of left the customer and then kind of left, but never want to laugh in a customer's face or be rude. You just have to figure out a way to politely respond to them in a nice way.
Okay, so you're going to also have employees, and you need to know what kind of training you're going to have to provide for them. You're going to have to train them on how to answer questions from visitors, just like Lindsay just said, and be very knowledgeable of the farm and the farm products that you have for sale. You're also going to have to determine who is an employee. Is it your family? Is it someone you've hired? Is it someone who's not getting paid, but they're volunteering? All of those are actually are considered employees, even if they're not getting paid. So you're going to have to provide some training for everybody, so everybody knows what their job is. And you're going to have different tasks for every employee. Some will have similar tasks, but if everybody knows what their job is, you'll have a much more successful time with your employees and hopefully have longer retention times with your employees. You can script your customer interaction piece, but hopefully your employees will practice that enough so it doesn't sound scripted. You want employees that are friendly, outgoing, and knowledgeable. So you're going to have to make a plan for employee training. You're going to have to set up a date and times, pay your employees for the time that they're there, probably feed them, but that will help everybody, keeps everybody much happier to work on the farm. Next slide. So some customer relations for agritourism destinations. Hospitality is just like in a hotel. The concierge welcomes you. Hospitality starts with the first person your customers are going to interact with on the farm. Most standard policies will include how to keep a clean and attractive facility. The first contact on the farm is just like the hotel concierge, tasked with ensuring that all customers feel welcomed, endeavor to treat visitors as important guests, and that their questions are answered accurately, and tell them that there are no stupid questions, even though you and I may feel like they are stupid questions, but you treat them like they're not. Have customers sign in before they engage in any farm activities, and that helps with some of the liability issues that surround agritourism. Employees should listen to and pay attention to customers and always be available for assistance, setting protocols in place for how to receive visitors at the farm. So there's a lot to customer relations. So now that you're not just farming, you are in the customer relation business.
So income sources in agritourism. So there's many different ways in agritourism that you can make additional revenue. And this includes anywhere from entrance or tour fees, farm goods, fresh and processed, activity fees. So if you have a corn maze, some farms have little containers for feeding the animals, different classes that are available. And this might be like for my farm, like lavender wreath making or bouquets. Tastings. So if you're going to have different tastings, like especially for like wine tastings, a tasting fee. If you're going to do like a culinary experience, so I know in my area, there's a lot of long table events that happen. Different events such as weddings, entertainments, and then making sure that it incorporates different aspects of your farm into these different events. You pick farm stays and then photo sessions. And then things to consider for events. You always want to communicate with your town planning, zoning, and assessor about your plans for your operation. You need to make sure that you have the permits if they're required by the town, if you need any presence of like police or security for events. Then keep accurate records of these different activities that for agritourism happen on the farm. And then ensure that you comply with any required signage, accessibility, hand washings, parkings, safety, and employee trainings that are required. And then so we've mentioned it several times, is making sure that you incorporate the farm into these different events. And Jen mentioned before was, for a wedding, making sure that you have the beef, if you have a beef farm, incorporating the beef potentially into the food for the wedding events. Determine if you're going to how you're going to handle food and stuff on your event. If you're going to allow outside caterers to come in, food trucks, what type of shelters available. Some people have structures that are built for their event space. Others have tents. If you're going to need electricity or a generator, what types of restrooms are available, and if you need any running water. Sometimes like caterers will come in and have their own water source, like especially for like cleaning up the dishes and stuff, but then they take them back to a facility and clean everything off afterwards. And then also for events, it's important to have a contract and a deposit, especially a deposit if anything gets damaged on your farm. So one of our future workshops, we're going to have a lawyer come in, and they're going to talk about liability and the importance of having a contract. And then for agritourism liability is, do you have insurance? Do you have an event contract? And then how safe is your farm to visitors? So it's really important on your farm to always be walking around, seeing what might happen, because overnight an animal could come in and dig a hole, and then the next day somebody could trip and fall in that hole. So it's important to monitor your farm as much as possible. And then, do you have clear signage of where people are allowed and not allowed? And then things to consider is, what type of operation structure are you? Are you sole proprietor, an LLC? Just knowing where your farm falls at this point and how much liability you're bringing on. And then, if you do have an accident on your farm, is make sure that you have an accident report forms and keep track of any accidents that happen.
Now I get to talk about the New York safety law. Something that was not actually, I don't think we did a slide on it, Lindsay, but those properties that are in an ag district and receiving ag value assessment would then be eligible with the protections with the New York State right to farm laws. Doesn't mean you're actually protected. It just means that you're eligible for protection. And so that's where agritourism should occur. So if you're not in an ag district, or if you're not receiving ag value assessment, you really ought to look into those pieces before getting involved in agritourism. So on the safety law itself, the Safety and Agricultural Tourism Act, which is now part of New York's General Obligations Law, GOL, provides that owners and operators of agricultural tourism areas shall not be liable for an injury to or death of a visitor if the provisions of the General Obligations Law are met. So that's something you really need to look into. You should be able to click on the link after when you receive the recording to actually look at New York State's inherent risk law. A one-size-fits-all approach does not ensure all protections are afforded by the Safety and Ag Tourism Act. For example, generic signage may not identify risks posed by the activities conducted on the farm. So that's where your risk management comes into play. You really have to mitigate all that risk yourself. To obtain the maximum protection afforded by the law, farm operations should work with their insurance and legal professionals and perform a risk assessment to identify potential risks to visitors specific to the farm. It's really important to look at. Make sure that your insurance company understands agriculture. Next slide. Okay. So as part of the guidance, the department outlines the important requirements of business operations, which include Lindsay, can you copy that link? Steve Gabriel's asking for that link to the inherent risk law to be put in the chat. Thanks. Posting warning signs in conspicuous locations on the potential risk of the on-farm activities and the responsibilities of the visitors. Make that very clear. There are signs available as mock-ups that you can look at to see if they work for you. Distributing written information to visitors, directing them to the posted signage. Posting directional signage. Taking reasonable care to prevent foreseeable risks. Providing training to employees. And posting a conspicuous notice to visitors of the right to a refund if you did not meet their expectations. So these are all really important pieces. It's not the entire safety law. And it's something that if you're going to be involved in agritourism, you need to really look at it, download a copy of it to bring to your attorney and to your insurance company as well.
Okay, questions to clarify with your insurer. So when should you talk with your insurance agent or broker? So if you're going to be doing any of these activities, you should contact your insurance company basically right away and let them know that you're planning to do this. And then what should you include in your policy? So it's really important to, when you're having a conversation with your agent or broker, to let them know everything that's happening on your farm. So for example, on my farm, I let them know I have a farm store, I have UPIC, when I have events, and it's better to be covered and let them know everything versus leaving things out and then potentially not be covered on your farm. And then find out if, when you set up a policy, is your farm and your home policy together, or is it a separate commercial business policy? And then it's important to know your insurance policy dates from start to finish, and just be making sure that you're on top of it. Make sure you pay for your coverage every single year on time. And then Jen's going to talk about this great resource that's been developed.
This is a brand new, it just got approved last week or the week before, Agritourism Risk Management in this brand new era. It was completed with the NERMI grant, the Northeast Extension Risk Management Education, and it's available on our website at Cornell Cooperative Extension, Dutchess County. And we can put that link, I think, Lindsay, I don't know if you can copy it or I can copy it quickly. Miriam Botang, who was in our office, did this entirety. It's 91 pages, so it's a huge document. But it's something that is really, we're finding it very valuable for agritourism operations to take a look at. It helps with a lot of these topics that we're talking about. I think some of our people in the future who are going to be doing some of these webinars in the future months are going to find this to be really useful as well. So I'm going to be quiet and we're going to take questions, but I'm going to go ahead and go get the copy of that link to put in the chat as well.
Thanks, Jen. So Jen, I just want to thank you for attending this first workshop. So we want people to join for the future workshop series in the future. However, if you can't make the workshop, we are recording all of them. So just sign up for the workshop series